Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We're both here. We're here to talk about the latest season of Stranger Things.
And Stranger Things as a whole.
Well,
and
that's-
Netflix as a whole.
Yeah.
And the entire entertainment industry.
Oh, really?
Yep, and we're going to cover it all in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Why
So
not?
many people have been asking for a definitive video about the entire entertainment industry. We'll knock it out.
We've got you covered
Yeah.
for just that very thing.
That's right.
So we're going to be talking about this latest season, season 4. Leave a like on this video. There's a number of things I want to get into, including some of the incredible makeup, Mason.
Yes.
What elements of nostalgia from
Thank you for noticing.
what elements of nostalgia actually work in this series as opposed to like another series, death in this universe and what that means or if it even matters, and of course the future of this series and then Netflix itself.
Whoa.
It's interesting though, don't you think, that I saw this on Twitter the other day that Winona Ryder in all the posters for Stranger Things gets smaller and blurrier
Oh,
every
no.
year as everybody else gets more and more famous.
Oh, wow.
Because she was, Matthew...
She was a person in the 80s.
Yeah, she was, and 90s, and still is.
And today, yeah.
But like Matthew Modine and her were probably the most famous people in that first series.
Yeah.
And now they're all, remarkably famous for not only Stranger Things, but many of them have other properties.
Mm-hmm.
The kids, obviously, but, David Harbour has gone on to do, big budget movies and the like.
He's in that Architectural Digest video that people like.
Is
You've
he?
seen his new? You've seen that NYC loft apartment? Oh my
oh,
god!
no,
Incredible.
I have seen that,
So
yeah.
many delightful. It's looking great.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, this is embarrassing. Look, the Stranger Things book is like front and center. That's so embarrassing.
So it's interesting that the characterization of these characters, I feel for the most part, has been very consistent. I think there is an exception that people have noticed.
Who's that?
Well, Mike. Because it seems like he was at the start, he would do things and he was a loyal friend and he understood what was happening around him. And then in this season, Mike's next to him and is like, I'm crying and I'm upset and I'm clearly like going through some emotional turmoil, and he's telling him how, Mike, you're really special and important, all of those things. And this is what you mean to 11, but it's really about what you mean to me. And he's just like, oh, cool, thanks. That's
He
great.
seems a little emotionally closed off, and I'm not sure where they want to go with that.
I mean, the haircut would throw you off, somebody
Yeah.
doing that to you,
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But also, like, he a lot of the turmoil of this season was like 11 going, oh, Mike, I love you. And he's like, thanks, man. Thanks, pal.
Cool.
That's cool, actually.
Do you think this is like because there are so many other characters that are being developed? Because he was like a pivotal anchor point of those first couple of seasons, whereas there's a lot of different story beats and prominent characters now.
Yes.
And the core cast keeps expanding until they kill one every now and then.
They kill one every now and then, the one you love. What is interesting, I think, about this series is that if this was just a series about supernatural goings-on on Netflix, I probably wouldn't care about any of this stuff. But I think the emotional core of this series is just that I like all the characters so much, and they take the time to develop characters that you love or you love to hate.
Yeah, sure.
But like often I'll watch this series and I'll think to myself, oh man, I would love to just see them just hanging out or whatever. Like
doing a D&D or whatever.
Doing a D&D. Like there's this, towards the start of this season, there was just the Hellfire Club boys just running around the school attempting to find a ringer because Lucas can't make it because he's on the basketball team and he maybe wants to make the finals. And so they have to sort of run around the school being like, hey, chess club, you want to be in this? Oh,
And they're like, we're awful nerds, but you're worse.
Preppy guys, you want to be on the D&D or whatever. And I would just love to see just a whole episode about that.
Right.
But obviously we won't, but I think the reason this works is they've built the characters up enough that you like them just as people as opposed to just stick figures that are going through a supernatural adventure. And it's similarly with Steve and Robin.
Yeah.
I've seen this a number of times on Twitter, and I agree with it. People would love to see them just a show where every week they stumble in a new job and have various wacky misadventures, and then they get fired and they have to find another job because they started out.
And they're just mates.
Yeah, because they were in the ice cream store in the previous season. Now they're in the video store, and it's just. And obviously we won't get that. People want the supernatural adventures, but I think it is a testament to Joe Keery and Maya Hawke's on-screen chemistry and their back and forth that I go, I love these guys. And it's fun to see them,
just hang about.
And get beaten up a lot.
Get beaten up a lot. Yeah, exactly. I think also, they show enough of that where you believe their backstory and the world outside of just the thing that's happening.
Yes, right. The Stranger Thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, even though we've seen a lot of that character
That's what they call them, right? Man, there sure is a lot of
Stranger.
There's a real stranger thing happening. There's another get the gang back together. There's another stranger thing happening.
This is even stranger than the last strange thing that happened to us. Yeah, but it feels like that, you get glimpses of that. And so it makes the world more believable. It's not like two people in a room like having the conversation. You're like, these people have never met. They have no backstory. One of the things that the Duffer Brothers do really well is that. I also think they show something that, I remember from being a teenager is, when you come up through adolescence and then you're in your early to mid-teens, people who maybe you were friends with, you develop different interests. Mm-hmm. And some people might go down the kind of the more nerd path, as it were. Some people will play a big basketball game. Sometimes it can be a combination of both. Yeah. And I think this show does
Some of us got into chess boxing, where you win a game of chess and then you win a boxing match.
Sure, yeah. I mean, not you.
No, that's what I did. No, really? I did that. Yeah.
Did you win the boxing match?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good for you. Because you see that, and I used to be a teacher as well, which some people might know, but you see friendship groups drift apart.
Oh, did you build a little flow chart in high school?
Yeah, I did.
Write this dude off.
Yeah. That's it. But I think they covered that really well. And at the start of this season, when they came back to it, and they're like, oh, Lucas is on the basketball team. I'm like, okay, whatever. But no, it is believable. I think that's one thing I noticed when starting this new season, because it had been so long since the previous one. I was like, do I even like this? Do I care about any of this? And then as soon as it started, I'm like, oh, no, I do like this. This is a very good show, actually.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in terms of casting, obviously, we mentioned good casting. I believe all of them together. Production values, really good.
It's insane, right?
Here's the thing as well. I feel like I enjoyed this season a lot, and something that maybe didn't strike me until a few episodes in was...
Or the red lightning?
Oh, yeah, no, that definitely struck me. That was striking me all over the place. Yeah. But this season seemed content to just be set in the 80s and not necessarily beat you over the head with how 1980s
I wanted to talk about that, yeah.
Because, maybe it's just hazy memories of the previous seasons, but I feel like they didn't go out of their way to go, look how in the 80s this is. Look, they're dressed as the Ghostbusters. That's another 80s thing. But this is a mashup T-shirt for the ages.
So it doesn't feel like, say, like a recent Ghostbusters movie where it's look at the 80s.
Oh, my God.
Look at the 80s.
Yeah, no, I guess. Probably you're absolutely right.
No, you're right, because the bit where in the final episodes where they're going into Vecna's lair, it's very much like reminiscent of the movie Aliens, but they're not like, this is just like the movie Aliens, which also came out in 1986. Yeah. Well, technically it wouldn't have been out then also because, this series is set at the start of 1986 and Aliens came out a little bit later. But the bit where she's Sarah Connoring at the end, like shooting Vecna out the window.
Yeah.
Like you get hints of these things that connect to other things. But
Nancy does have a very Ripley hair.
Yeah, totally.
But and there are occasional references. The characters might be going to see Police Academy 3 or what have you.
Yeah,
but that's just
background.
It's a little background. It's a little bit of flavor text. It wasn't look how 1980s we are right now. I mean, I say that now, but obviously they did go to the roller disco, and there was a very preppy popped polo Letterman's jacket.
Yeah, but that was probably a thing then.
That was probably a thing back then, yeah.
Yeah, I also think the use of music and obviously the two famous and recent examples are Kate Bush and Metallica, Master of Puppets. I feel like those aren't your go-to 80s songs necessarily.
They will now. They will be now.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean?
Kate Bush is apparently doing very well off that.
Absolutely.
The resurgence.
And
that's where you want to be now as a nostalgic, iconic musician. Is you want to get your stuff into a...
But I feel like it could have been they could have done Wham or something like that, like a really popular known Wham song. Where if you have something like Kate Bush, I think that's a slightly deeper cut than doing something really obvious.
I bet there's a musician from the 80s and they had a song called Stranger Things, and every day they're waiting for that phone call. Come on.
I think though there are people who might see a TV set that's not exactly era
or an air conditioning unit, I think,
or whatever, and people get upset. But I mean, I don't know enough about 80s air conditioning units or TV cabinets to care.
I do, and I'm furious.
Yeah, but also you could also hand wave this away by this isn't the real 80s, obviously, because none of this stuff exists. But yeah, I think it's more also.
Do you think that could be a twist in the future?
Oh, they get to the future.
None of this is the real 80s. It's just in a little boy's mind in a snow globe or something.
The 80s, wouldn't it?
It'd be very the 80s or the 90s. Yes.
Yeah, whenever that particular thing happened. But yeah, it feels like they nail the vibe of the era without adhering exactly to every particular thing that happens, which is absolutely fine by me. The makeup in this, though, there's a few things. For example, They did TV de-aging with 11, and it's my God. I
guess it was a little girl of that age, and they've pasted Millie Bobby Brown's face. Could some of that have been excess footage that was
there
not
is
used
some in there
from the first season?
But there's definitely most of it is new.
Yeah.
And the difficult thing about de-aging somebody isn't so much just the look, it's getting them to move and talk. We've seen it on The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
When they do young Luke Skywalker, it's a very difficult thing to achieve. And I think this, if you didn't know, you probably wouldn't notice. I know there'll be some people.
That being said, I think young 11 only really has one expression.
Well, that is
true.
Which
is stare.
And scream
while
stare
and scream,
sprays out of your face. And I know there'll be people in the comments that are like, well, I noticed and I found it distracting. Yes, we appreciate it.
But we're not paying attention as hard as you.
I'm looking at the air conditioners.
I'm on my phone.
I'm Googling air conditioners from the era. But also, of course, there's the physical makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And so the person behind this is, we've talked about this in our podcast, The Weekly Planet, where we talk movies and comics and TV shows, Mason. It's a great podcast. Comes out every Monday. Barry Gower, who's a great makeup artist, did a couple of things.
The Green Knight?
Yep.
The titular Green Knight?
The greenest knight you've ever seen.
That's right.
And obviously Vecna from this. And something you might not have noticed, but what they're calling a full-faced Hopper.
Oh.
So there's a few flashbacks in this from when after what happened to him in the previous season.
Yes.
And obviously in real life, he dropped a lot of weight. And the initial idea was, can we film all the stuff now? Because I'm going to lose a lot of weight.
Yeah, right.
And then they went, no, we don't know exactly what we're doing yet. So then they had to put this facial prosthetic on him.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You would never know.
The technology has absolutely advanced from Weird Al Yankovic's Fat video. It's gotten way better.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to the person who's doing it, in this case Barry Gower, and the time you've got to get it right and the money. And the budget is in the show where you will commit to something like that.
Oh, he did The Night King as well.
Yeah,
and another thing.
And another thing.
Yeah.
Another spooky thing. Here it is. Colling's editing this and he put in the other thing that he did.
It's the bad guy at the end of The Mask when he puts the mask on and his head's all big.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what he did. He did that one.
Did he really?
No.
Wow,
I don't think so.
Terrific. But that Vecna makeup.
Yeah.
My God. And performance as well, obviously. I think it's 6 or 7 hours of just sitting in a chair.
The only thing better in this season than the Vecna makeup is the guy in the Vecna makeup. You see a behind-the-scenes photo and he's drinking an iced coffee or something
That's right. Jamie Campbell Bower is his name. Yeah, and he did the voice as well, which they obviously then recorded after because you're restricted by what you can say when you're covered in all of that.
To transcend my human form. To become the predator I was always born to be.
And you'll notice also, they do still CGI, the tentacles on his neck and things like that. And it's almost as if they're kind of flowing.
His nectacles.
Yeah, his nectacles. They're flowing through him. It's kind of like that Davy Jones kind of, that kind of situation and effect going on there. So just really, really incredible. What I would say, though, for this series, this particular series, Series 4, whatever we're up to, would you say all of these storylines matter, or do you think they painted themselves into a corner by having to go to Russia and do all that? Because I know some people the Russian sequence isn't the most interesting part of that. I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed it a lot, and I enjoyed that, Joyce and Hopper's arc, their entire plot line was, we got to get Hopper out of this situation, and then they're like, well, we got to go back into the prison now. We got to...
Yeah. I mean, it also seems like the creatures don't attack any of the main characters in that prison, really,
That's true,
do they?
yes.
He can close its mouth shut with his bare hands. He's a big guy, I guess, isn't he?
Yeah. And he's strong from all the time being starved in a Russian prison.
That's right, eating maggots or whatever he said.
Yeah.
I also think at the end when he's like, we're going to create a distraction for 11, whatever 11's doing on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
I don't think what he was doing really did reflect what was happening at the same time on the other side of the world or whatever.
But Stranger Things has always been about you separate the main players and then you bring them back all together.
And they all high-five and hug.
And you're right, at the end of this one, it's like, well, we've still got some people in Russia. We can't really they can't really take a bus to Hawkins right now. So let's say there's a big hive mind.
That's right, yeah.
How did you feel about the revelation of this season that Vecna was not a mere creation of the Mind Flayer? He wasn't just the Mind Flayer's neighbor or whatever.
Yeah.
He was actually the one responsible for everything that's ever happened in Hawkins.
It reminds me of the Doctor Doom character from the 2015 Fantastic Four movie, where he also stumbles into a parallel dimension and returns as a horrible
because of course he is
monster.
this man is number one. He's the first kind of psychokinetic experiment.
Yeah.
And he was banished to this upside down, and he's decided to create his own kind of kingdom.
Do you think How long do you think they had this idea for?
This season.
Because, I mean, obviously at the end, they show like the big spider that he created or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the previous season and you see that Will is drawing like a similar big spider thing.
Right.
I wonder at what point they were like,
we need a mastermind.
Yeah, and I guess also by naming 1111, you do leave room for a number one to appear. So I don't know. I think I'm certain they didn't have all the details fleshed out, but I feel like they had an idea of what this was going to be.
I reckon this is a season 4 kind of.
Well, I think regardless, it fits really well.
Yeah,
though.
I think so too. Yeah.
Putting this character in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a case if you need a 4-season master plan. I just think it's interesting. I think they've just thought on their feet very well.
I think it's also it's a good idea to kind of pin it on one particular person or entity.
Because then you can beat them up in a car park at the end.
That's right. There's that. And it's also, exactly, because you've got like a physical target to go up against. Whereas if next time it's just like, I don't know, another faceless screaming creature escapes into the real world.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you can kind of do that.
That's true, yeah.
Whereas now you've got like the leader of this hive mind. You've got a focal point.
How do you feel about, I think I've gone back and forth on a little bit, but I only watched it yesterday, so
sure.
I haven't bolted my opinion down yet. How do you feel about the idea that Vecna got away? How do you feel about the idea that all the main kids were like, Eddie, we'll stop this guy and we'll clear your name? They didn't do either of those things.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have another season, obviously.
Yeah. See, I felt initially I would have liked to see this entire idea, this entire concept of the Upside Down. I would have sort of felt excited to have them close the book on that entirely,
right.
And then another season pops up and we have maybe a different realm or a different universe or a different.
That's a lot to do with like one more season.
Well, that's the thing. Is it one more season and done?
Yeah,
Do you think? Okay, well then I guess then
various spin-offs, etc.
Right, but then I'm immediately flip-flopping. I guess we need now that we know who the mastermind is, we need another season-long trek into the Upside Down to defeat this final guy. Also, how do you feel about this, James?
Okay.
How do you feel about still nobody in Hawkins knows that this is happening except for these kids?
Well, do you think they've probably figured it out now?
Because the last season, it was everybody died in a fire.
Yes.
And at the end of this season, it's like everybody who died, it was an earthquake this time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'll be like the movie Alien vs. Predator Requiem.
Oh, yes, go on.
Where as in, it's all going to spill out into the regular world and all of a sudden people are confronted with this greater threat.
Well, maybe that's what we're getting in season 5.
Yeah.
We're getting the final defeat of Vecna.
Yep.
And we're getting the people of Hawkins finally realize what's happening and some justice for everybody who's been accused of being a horrible murderer.
Yeah.
But actually has not been a murderer.
Well, there was the jock and the earthquake got him, didn't it?
That's true, yes.
Everybody was loving that. People are like, this is the worst villain in the series.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, there's the big monster.
Certainly the snootiest. Certainly the poppetest collared.
Speaking of deaths, though.
Yes.
So it does feel a bit of a cop-out that they brought back Hopper. Though, I love David Harbour and whatever, he's back. Then we got Max died, but then didn't. She's in a coma, which basically means that she'll
be
return.
Back, yeah.
But then I feel like they've been really reluctant to kill anybody in the main cast.
Right.
See, Eddie Munson, who was a great addition.
Loved him, yeah.
He was obviously killed off in this season. Though I feel like for nothing, because, he was just like, I'm going to run into bats.
Yeah,
he didn't really need to run into bats. He could have stayed in the caravan.
Maybe that's a little piece of advice for any of the, adolescents watching.
Yeah.
You don't really need to run into bats.
You don't have to. Not to impress your friends or anything.
Yeah. Not even to clear your name.
I think they're going to have to kill at least one of the main cast, right?
Yes, I think so.
Or someone will sacrifice themselves to do a big...
Who do you think it'll be? I think it'll be Will.
Will, yeah. Yeah. But then again, he's the one who probably, other than 11, deserves the happiest of endings. He's been through so much, and we've seen also him...
So many bad haircuts.
Yeah, exactly.
It's getting worse and worse, the haircut.
He's been... struggling with his sexuality, and also
that's why I think they'll kill him.
Yeah, but I also think that's why they might not kill him, because maybe he deserves happiness.
Yes,
because he also is in an era where...
To be clear, I think they shouldn't kill. I would rather not any of the main characters die, but I think that's a trope that a lot of these kind of shows lean heavily into. They just killed Eddie.
Yeah, well, that is true.
It's bury your gays is the trope.
Yeah, but I kind of want him to have a happy ending, because, and he's also in an era where, in the 80s, where a person like that, it was difficult.
The Midwest in the 80s.
That's, and I would like to see.
Not that it's easy now.
No, of course not. I mean, there's a lot of places in the world where it absolutely isn't, but I would like to see some happiness for that character. And it's also like, I love the moment.
Bear in mind, though, he's not real.
Yeah, that's a good point. Then I hope they all explode then.
Yes!
But, there was I really love the moment with his brother, and his brother's clearly like, I know what's happening here.
Yes.
And just it doesn't bother me, and you're my brother and I love you. I loved all of that. What did shock me, though, and shocked me to my very core, speaking of callbacks to the 80s, Paul Reiser is in this.
Yes.
And he doesn't betray anybody. Because thinking back to aliens and
was
obviously.
Was he not in the previous season?
He was, yeah.
Yes, he was.
And also Mad About You.
Oh, yeah.
Just always doing
Full
a big
betrayal.
portray. But yeah, I'm shocked that Matthew Modine is the evil scientist and he's the good scientist. I think as an 80s callback, I just thought I'm surprised,
Sure.
But I think that's also, things like casting Sean Astin from the previous couple of seasons.
Yeah.
Even Winona Ryder, you're taking iconic 80s actors and you bring them in. I think that's...
Who's next? Lorenzo Lamas?
Yes.
Nice.
Will Wheaton.
Ooh.
The cast of Stand By Me, the ones who are alive.
Terrific.
Yeah. Let's talk about the future of this series, though.
Okay, great.
So, executive producer Sean Levy has opened up about not wanting the series to outstay its welcome, suggesting that a bold, satisfying ending is on the horizon. We don't want to be one of those shows that is flailing while it searches for a way to stick the landing. Yeah, we just really want to stick the landing.
That's a really good idea. And I suspect this will be a series that people look back on very fondly. If you don't want a Game of Thrones this. You don't want to rush to an ending to go and do something else, and then it's just erased from the public consciousness. If they do 5 really solid seasons of this, and you show the characters, growing up and growing older and wiser, and having little adventures and having different odd jobs, and you have a satisfying conclusion for all these characters, then people are going to look back on it fondly. People are not going to cancel their Netflix subscriptions.
Well, I think,
most importantly, because they just be like, I'm going to rewatch Stranger Things every year. I'm going to set aside that 60 hours. I don't know how long season 5 is going to be.
In terms of when the next season is coming out, they haven't started filming it yet, obviously. So I would say, judging by the timeline of this and the last season, late 2023 at the earliest. And Joe Keery said season 5 is going to be pure chaos.
Whoa. They're going to have to de-age any of those actors? We're just going to play make-believe.
There's going to be a time jump.
Okay,
and also,
terrific.
most of them are around 18 or below.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but then again, Joel Keery is 30-ish, and
sure.
he's still, supposed to be late teens, early 20s. But here's the thing. What is Netflix going to look like by the time this rolls around
that is a great
as
question.
A platform? Because the current model is either release everything at once and then it disappears and they cancel it, or slightly stagger it, which is what we've seen for this.
Because they hadn't finished the VFX.
Exactly.
That was a rumor, and then the Duffer Brothers, I believe, said day of the release of the second part of this season, they were still uploading VFX shots. So if you watched it early, apparently you may not have seen some complete set.
Some of the bats
Some of
missing.
the bats might have been missing, sure, yeah.
But I think also Netflix at the moment, they're not making shows like this, or if they do, they'll cancel them. Jupiter's Legacy, they put a lot of money into it. They bought Miller World so they could make all of these properties, and that series was cancelled. You might get a Man vs. Bee, where they get a big name actor and they CGI a bee. I haven't seen it at all, but I think that's what that is.
That is mostly the plot, yes.
I think another example of a show like this, which is successful, is The Umbrella Academy, which has the budget, which has a really good cast, which has an ongoing storyline, which people are invested in. But there is not much beyond that which continues. I mean, there are examples of good shows like Heartstopper. That doesn't have the budget of something like this.
That's true.
And they'll give $50 million to a comedian so they can be like, cancel culture's going to get me, man.
It's fascinating because this should be the lesson for Netflix, that if you invest in these characters and you give them time, people will continue to watch. Yeah. But Netflix has apparently decided to follow this weird algorithm that they don't seem to understand, and we certainly don't understand, which is produce one season of something that people seem to connect with and then just never finish that storyline and cancel it after one season or 2 seasons.
I think, honestly, the answer is, as much as, people aren't probably going to like them doing this, is that you got to stagger the season because then it gets more of a cultural impact. Like with The Boys, you release the first 2 or 3 and then you go week to week.
Do you think that's a lesson for showrunners? Maybe really Oh, sorry, we couldn't. We actually couldn't. The second half of the season actually isn't ready yet. We haven't finished the VFX, so better wait a couple of months.
Yeah, you might be right.
That's a hot tip for you, Netflix creators. Just pretend to be incompetent.
There was a series of movies called Fear Street.
Oh yeah, based on the books.
Yeah, based on the books. And what they did, they were set over different eras, and I think they were every Friday for like 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I don't think it did as well as maybe they would have liked.
Cancel it then.
No, but I like the idea of doing something like that.
Oh.
You know, where you got something to look forward to, every week. So Russian Doll, for example, when that came out, it was when Succession season 1 came out.
Okay.
And the social media hype for Russian Doll was bigger than Succession.
But then it was gone.
Then it was gone, exactly. Succession continued to build week to week, year to year. Whereas the second season of Russian Doll came out, and apparently it's very good. I haven't watched it yet. And then it disappears again, whereas Succession is now one of the biggest shows and most talked about shows in the world.
Yeah.
Because they've been staggering the release and allowing these characters to grow on the buzz and the hype and all of that thing.
I loved season 3 of The Umbrella Academy, and I've been telling people that, and people say, oh, is there a season 3 of The Umbrella Academy?
Exactly.
What the hell did you just say?
So I don't know. Anyway, Netflix, if you're listening, change something.
Give us money.
They give us money and keep making good and expensive shows, and stop making movies where it's like it's 2 famous actors and they're in a movie where they get paid a lot of money, but the movie kind of sucks. Stop doing that.
Give us money, though.
And give us the money.
We're not making anything. Just give us
we'll take
money.
it.
We'll take your money.
Any money you got.
Just as a funny experiment.
That would be so funny.
It'd be very funny.
Anyway.
You can't say anything anymore?
Yeah.
If that helps, if that sells us on you, Netflix, you
Yeah.
can't say anything anymore, and we believe that, and we'll say it for money.
That's right. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, there are other videos on this channel, obviously, Mason. Obviously. And we have a podcast, as mentioned, called The Weekly Planet that comes out every Monday. We also have a service called Big Sandwich, which is like our own Netflix, but even better. Because we say things that you can't say anywhere. Isn't that right?
That's true. And there's no visuals to distract you,
That's right. We do bonus exclusive podcasts. We do movie commentaries. We do things like we do a comic book club. We do other things, don't we, Mason?
We do a clickbait club. It's not really a club.
No, it's just where we just read out terrible clickbait and make fun of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for watching this. Thank you to Rob Collings for the edit. And we'll see you on the next time we talk about something, whatever that is.
That's lovely.
Isn't it?
Grab that jam, you guys. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.